Hello everyone, it's Freedom and Fantastic from Holistic Songwriting, facebook.com/Holistic Songwriting, and we're doing Feedback Friday number 5 today, which is the feature where I give feedback to your songs. All you have to do is go on facebook.com/Holistic Songwriting. There's going to be a picture there that says Feedback Friday every Friday, and all you have to do is comment below it as one of your songs or a link to one of your songs, and I will review it the next day and give you some tips that are valuable for everyone. Each week I select 5 songs out of all the submissions, and those 5 songs are based on what I think is valuable to learn for everyone. So the big idea here is that we want to learn from everyone's mistakes, not just from our own. So I'm picking, for example, if I pick a song, I want to make sure that what I can teach you for that song is something that is relevant not just to you but to everyone. That being said, I'm also going to try to keep it personal and also really go in depth with your songs, but there's always going to be a lesson for everyone here. Now, this feature here has been going on for 5 weeks, and already it's one of the coolest things for me. It's the coolest thing, like, it's my favorite thing in the week. I just love doing this. It's so much fun, and you guys are so, like, I've gotten so much positive, so much love from you guys for this, and I'm just so thankful. Thank you guys so much. Let's keep this thing going, and let's never let this thing stop, because I'm really excited about it. Anyways, let's start with song number 1, which is Kafla's, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Still Waters. Kafla, how are you doing, dude? It's good to finally meet you here. And we're also going to do the rest of this Feedback Friday in British, just so you know. No, the British accent is terrible. Anyways, there we go again. You have a nice melody there. You have your lyrics are it's a nice twist for a love song, and I love how you're using this metaphor of the still waters. You're taking that literally, and then you sort of transport that throughout your entire song, which I think is a really nice idea, and I think it works. I think you have some really beautiful lyrics here. There's some really nice metaphors that you're using, although, and this is my first issue that I have with your song, there are some lines in there that seem a little bit funny to me, a little bit unintentionally funny to me, and I don't know. I'm not going to say which one, but there was one line with the word purse in particular, which I thought was a little humorous. Let's put it like that. But I mean, maybe you're aware of that. Maybe that's what you wanted. It depends a little bit on how it's delivered, I guess. But to me, it seemed a little bit funny, a little bit out of place, I guess. It didn't seem like a love song in those moments, but more juvenile sort of humor-ish, if you know what I mean. Anyways, a recommendation I have for you is to listen to the track, or to an entire album actually, which your track kind of reminds me of, which is Dark Eyes by Half Moon Run. That's Half Moon Run, and the album is called Dark Eyes. This was their first album. It's a fantastic CD. It's one of my favorite CDs from a couple of years ago. It's something I've had on repeat for hours. It's just such a great album, and it's very atmospheric, but it's all played live. It's just a fantastic album. Your song reminded me of it. I recommend you listen to it because there's a lot of stuff in there which I think you will be able to learn from. Just a lot of techniques that they're using, a lot of instruments that they're using, a lot of things that are kind of counterintuitive, or some things I haven't really heard before, but they're doing it so well. So that's really my recommendation to you and to everyone else as well. If you like great music, I personally love it. Half Moon Run's Dark Eyes. Anyways, let's get to 3 pieces of advice that I have for you about your song. And number 1 is your word choice. So we've already talked about the unintentionally funny bits, but there's another thing that I want to talk about here, and that is what I call, actually it's something my mom taught me, and she studied literature. I'm not quite sure if that's the right word. Like, I'm going to call it word worlds, just because that's how I remember it. There's different worlds in words, right? There's so many words, but words can be grouped into different worlds or sets of words, correct? And each world sort of has its own feel. So there's, in your song, your world, your word world would be, this is terrible, it's just, it sounds like a warm-up exercise for your tongue, but that's just the worst word, is word world. I have to definitely find a different name for that. I'm going to ask my mom again. I think she has a better title for that. An official one, that being that. All right, anyways, so word worlds. Let's get back to the business here. for example, in your case, all your stuff is related to water or to river or stuff like that. And then there are some words that you're using that don't really fit into that world anymore. So I'm sorry, I don't have the lyric here. I don't know why I didn't put it here. But there were some words in your lyric that didn't fit into this world anymore. And that's really a shame. See, for example, I had a couple of friends that they gave me some lyrics for feedback, and they wrote basically it was a love song, big surprise there, and it was basically the metaphor there was a card game, and it was like put your cards on the table and cheating and all that stuff, like all these these words with double meaning, you know what I mean? But the problem was that they had some lines in there which just didn't have that theme embedded into them. And so there were lines in there like, when you took off with that guy, or I saw you in the car with him, or something like that, where I'm like, well, this is the love song, but I don't see the card theme in here. And car and cards is, even though they all have the same letters in them, is too different for my taste, you know, like, and I mean, it's not just my taste, like, this is, I mean, proper literature tip here for you guys, is car, if I think of car, I'm having a very different picture in my head than when I think of cards, right? When I think of a poker table, which is very classy and sort of laid back and stuff like that, and cars, I'm thinking of whatever, Need for Speed, you know, but something completely different. So I guess what the key thing to take away from this is word worlds. Be very aware of the kind of words that you're using and make sure they fit together and have the same theme. The second piece of advice I have for you is lyrical storytelling, which is, I think your song is lacking that a little bit. And I mean, I wrote a book about it. I don't have it here right now, but it's the Addiction Formula book. Maybe you've already seen me talk about it on a previous episode. That goes into this a lot deeper. I'm going to talk about lyrical storytelling a little bit more in this video as well. But the main thing, the main issue that I have with your song is that your tone of voice stays the same throughout the entire piece. And the voice is such an amazing instrument for influencing your lyrical storytelling. And in the book, there's actually a lot of techniques and tips on how to tell a story just with your voice. Because there's a lot of songs out there where it's just piano, and it's just quarter notes, piano, and then the voice does everything. And you can only do that if you're sort of at a certain level of skill with your vocal cords. Like Beyonce can, I mean, she could do something a cappella, and it's just fantastic, right? Because she's just such a great singer, and she understands that, like, she builds her songs up so well. But so there's a couple of books and tips in the book. But one thing I'm gonna point out in particular, that's the na 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 part, which I really like that idea. This is probably the thing that made me think of Half Moon Run the most, because it's sort of a question-answer thing, right? So the na 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 is the question, and then that line after that, which is, I think it's just still water, right? Or still waters, is the answer to that phrase. So it's always question and answer. And why not, that na 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 is so in that same range as everything else. Why not sing that in falsetto and sort of do like a higher voice to sort of give your chorus a little bit more push, to sort of make it stand out a little bit more. And there is one song on Dark Eyes in particular, which is called, I think it's called Drug You, I'm not sure, I think it's called Drug You, which has a chorus that does that, and I think it's fantastic. It's probably my favorite song off of the album, although all of them are great, but that's something to listen to. And tip number 3 is, and this is something I actually talked about in a blog post this week on Holistic Songwriting, the Facebook page, is keep it simple. Your stuff is really, really busy. Your bass in particular is really stressful. Like the pattern that you're using is a 16th pattern, which I don't think it needs. It could be in a subdivision of 8th notes. So just make it a little bit less stressful. Like take out a couple of the notes, make it a little bit, let the bass lay there. Have it be the foundation of your track. Right now it's doing too much, and it's like me when I'm talking at Feedback Friday. It's just, you know what I mean? There's too much happening. Same goes for your drum set. You have a lot of notes in your drum set which I don't think are necessary, and I would personally take most of them out and really get back to a really simple groove, bass drum on 1 on 3, snare on 2 and 4, or even go for a halftime feel, meaning a bass drum on 1 and the snare on the 3. just sort of make that simpler, make it sit more in the song. And the last thing that I wanted to say about keep it simple is your arpeggiator, which adds, I think, too many notes. It's distracting to me. So I don't know if you know, like, it's basically, it comes down to making decisions. It's what you want to keep and what you want to lose. And I know it's hard because when I'm sitting on a song, I'm always like, oh, you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this, and there's a guitar solo. You know, I try to put in as much stuff as I can, but then I'm always like, yeah, no, but it's not going to serve the song. This is going to destroy the song because it's going to distract from what's already there. And so then I don't do it. But I have those ideas too, you know. It's just that I control myself and not do it. And it's much harder to have 3 or 5 instruments and make those sound amazing than it is to have 20 instruments and have all of them sound mediocre. And because your mix in the end will not sound as good as if you just have 3 or 5 instruments. Little bit of information, something I learned recently, which I think is just cool. The word decide comes from Latin, and it is split into the words de and side. And so de means away or off, and side means cut. So decide means not choose. There's a big difference between choose and decide. Decide actually refers to cutting out one of your options. So it's not just saying, oh, I choose for this one and, you know, everything else is of equal value, but you're saying, no, I deliberately decide against this one. I cut it off, I cut it out of my song, and I deliberately decide for this one. You understand what I'm trying to say here? Deciding is not a choice, but you're consciously saying, no, this one is not it, and this one is going to be it. So I think that's a different thing than a choice, because choice sort of implies that both have the same value, which a decision doesn't really have. Next song on my list is Keytronic's cover of Kizzy Lotus, Homesick, which is a beautiful song. It's a really nice production. It has a lot of detail. I like the sound design, which I don't hear a lot of on this channel as of yet. It has a nice atmosphere, and the atmosphere works with the lyrics and works with the chorus line. But I had some things, 2 things in particular that I wanted to talk about. And the first one is the idea of stars. And again, this goes back to the deciding thing, keep it simple, I guess. But in this case, I think it's not so much about keeping it simple, but about making a decision as to who your stars in your mix are going to be. And so this is going to be a little mixing lesson here, I guess. What I mean by that, who's your star, means what is going to be the one thing that attracts everyone's attention. In a typical pop song, that's going to be the groove and the voice, and probably the voice foremost, right? The first and foremost. In your song, I feel like you don't really have a star. Everything is in the background, and there's nothing I can pay attention to, really, because everything is has equal value. And that is a very careful form of mixing, which I'm also very guilty of, especially in film music. But I think your song would really profit from 1 or 2 stars that stand out a little bit more, that we can listen to, fully can listen to. And obviously, since you have vocals, I think that should be your vocals. Your guitars are also really soft. I mean, in general, I mean, your song is very nicely balanced, but there's nothing that stands out, which I think is a shame. So figure out who your stars are in your mix and make them shine. And another thing that you could also do is to make it stand out more, your song, is to add a heavier groove. Because right now everything is really careful. You're not standing out at all. It's really it's very nicely balanced, but you're very careful with all your musical decisions. So how about adding a groove to give that whole thing a little bit more of a push forward? You know what I mean? Alright, sound design wise, I thought the guitar, and this is a tricky one. I know this one is really, really tricky to fit a guitar like this in an electronic track like that. Your guitar doesn't really fit into the sound designy background. It works with your voice. You manage to get your voice sounding electronic enough so it works with the background, but your guitar sounds still really woody and creaky, and sort of, it sounds too unpolished for the rest of the song, because the rest of the song is so well, everything's equalized out, and it sounds like really sweet, but the guitar is still really like, wow, and it has this really creaky kind of sound. Um, so that's something I think you should work on. I also personally don't like the rhythm of the guitar that much. Maybe take out the guitars altogether. I think that your song would profit from that. I think it would take them out. Um, one more tip I have for you is the lyrical storytelling in your song could be better, meaning if you want it to be more commercial, then you really should focus on your lyrical storytelling a little bit more, because right now you don't really have any moments. And it depends on what you want. If you want your song to be background music, if you want it to be sort of ambient, sort of just a cool atmospheric song, then you don't need it to have moments. But if you want it to have a moment where people go, "This is my favorite moment," then focus on your lyrical storytelling and try to develop there a little bit. I don't know if you saw, but there's a video series on my channel here about lyrical storytelling, and obviously there's also the book, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, that's something you maybe should think about. I don't know if that was your intention of having moments, but if you want them, if it's like, I mean, if this was a movie, you know, it would just be shots of nature. There wouldn't really be any plot. And my favorite movies are, you know, the ones where there's a lot of stuff happening, where I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. Those are my favorite movies. So that could be a comedy, you know, but comedies can also have a really fascinating story. And your song doesn't really tell me a story yet. It's like it's beautiful shots of nature. So that's what I'm seeing. And again, I'm a very visual person. So when I'm listening to your song, that's what I'm seeing in my head. Next song is CrystalSuzy's "No One Looking Back." And yes, it's not a Pineapple song, but we don't want to, no one's looking back on last week. See what I did there? Haha. I'm going to do the "see what I did there" joke a couple of times every week, just so you know. I like your harmonies. This is really cool. Like, this is a really different song than last week's song. Last week's song was like all over the place, super experimental and like an art project. This week's song is, I wouldn't say it's commercial, but it's definitely a lot more in that realm. It has some really cool, interesting harmonies and interesting melodies. There were some parts where I was like, ooh, this is getting close to the edge, but it was always, I think it worked. In the end, I would say the whole picture works pretty well. I really liked your ending with the ahs or the ha's. That was really a cool ending. Okay, how many tips? I have 2 basic tips for you, and those tips go out to everyone. Those are basically the 2 lessons that I think you can learn from CrystalSuzy. Impact is my first one. Your whole song, like the mix of your song, is alright, but it falls apart in your chorus. And I think the biggest thing here is your drums. Your drums definitely need more impact. They need more oomph. It really rather sounds like someone left the snares on the snare drum, and it's just buzzing at the right moment. Like it has like no attack. It's just so backgrounded, you almost don't notice it. I think it is. I'm not sure if you recorded that drum set because it's a little bit hard to hear because it's so soft in the mix. But if you're using MIDI drums, then increase the velocity of that drum set. My velocities on drums are usually around 110 out of 127, so it's pretty high. But drummers, they hit their drum sets. I mean, there's jazz drummers who play really softly, but that's really difficult to play. Most drummers, most pop drummers, most folk, almost every drummer that I know plays their drums loud, because that's when drums sound good. Just like guitar amps, you need to play them loud so that they sound good. So that's one big tip for you, is increase the velocity of your drums and have them sit in the mix. You know, have your bass drum and your snare be a part of your mix, because right now it's just like another instrument in the background. Timing is the next thing, and whenever you want power, force, whenever you want something to go forward in the mix, your timing needs to be good. And in this song, there's especially the drums and I think it's a guitar, or is it a piano? I'm not sure, but there's a new instrument in the chorus. I think it's a guitar. And the drums and the guitar are just doing sort of this. You know, there's if this is the metronome, there's laid forward, so I'm not sure if this is the right way around. But it can be before the beat, and that's called drive. It can be behind the beat, that's called laid back. What you're doing, unfortunately, is a rocking chair, so it's just going like this. If you wanted to have punch, then that really takes away from that punch a whole lot. So because if everyone hits it together, then it becomes louder that moment, and then it becomes more of an accent. But if it's like, the rocking chair, then things just get a little bit fuzzy, and the transients, is that the word? Transients are not that sharp, and that means you're losing attack and you're losing that impact. So that's about timing. And whenever you're ending your drum parts, because right now you only have the drums in your chorus, which is fine. I really don't mind that. But whenever you have a drum part that ends, don't just let it end, because that sounds really, oh, I guess it's over now. But have them end with like a bass drum on the one and a crash or a ride or a hi-hat on at the same time. So, it sounds weird if you play it, and then it's over. What sounds nicer is, you know what I mean? Just to sort of finish that phrase off. And then also to introduce your drums, because drums are such a big part of lyrical storytelling. They take up so much space in a song functionally. I'm not even talking about mix or balance. I just mean functionally. Drums are such a big part of a song. They bring so much to a song whenever you introduce them, do it right. So I would suggest using a little fill going into that chorus, just to make sure that once the chorus hits, it's a real big moment, right? And I mean, not overly big, but I mean, depending on the rest of your song, right? Obviously, you don't want every song to have a huge chorus. I just mean the chorus should always stand out in some way. And it could also be a very small chorus, but that's not what your song is about. The second thing I want to talk about is melody groove. There are some lines in your song which need a little bit more doctoring. And I'm talking about your lyrics here, and from a very rhythmical, so musical standpoint. So not so much from talking about the text or what you're saying, but really more from, well, what are your lines doing, basically? So your first lyric, your first verse, and I think you have three, your first verse works nicely. That's okay. That's good. But your second and third verse, they have some lines in there that rhythmically don't really work yet. And lyrics, it's tough, I know. And this week I'm working on 9 songs at the same time, or I'm currently like off and on working on different projects, and there's 9 songs that I've been working on for the last couple of months for 3 different artists. And lyrics is it's the hardest job for me, and especially because I have to write them in German at the moment. 2 of these artists want German lyrics, so that's really tough, because German is especially hard to make it sound good. But it's puzzling. It's a puzzle. I sit there for hours just trying to come up with a better line, and it's just like, and it's just, you sit there and you're like, oh, I could do this, but then that won't work with the line before. I could do this, that makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't sound nice. Then I have this, which has a nice rhythm to it, but I don't know, the syllables don't really sound nice, and it's just, or it's too much information in one line. And it's so much work to write good lyrics. And I think you're pretty much there in your first verse, but verses 2 and 3 I think still need a little bit more of doctoring around, a little bit more puzzling around until you get the right groove, until you get the right message, etc. I hope you know what I mean. Anyways, next song is Rachel Debattista's Strength Within. Which, oh yeah, I wrote down after the first verse, because it starts off so nicely. It's just piano and voice, and it's such a pretty voice, which is a compliment. After the first verse, I just kind of expected an advertising for a retirement home, because it's so pretty, and I can't remember the words right now. Actually, I have them here. When the story's left untold, when there is no hand to hold, when life comes to keep you tired, and then, join us at Retirement Home, Wisconsin, whatever. That's just, I don't know why I had to think of that. I just thought that was funny. I like your chords. I really like what you're doing in the chorus to go somewhere else. That's cool. Your melodies work for the most part. You have a nice voice. It's a nice song. And there's a lot of potential here, It's very basic in what it is, and I understand it's a demo. It's very basic in what it is, but I can hear a lot of potential here. Like, it's a lot of tweaking still, and but I hear strings, I hear drums, and I hear lots of reverb. this could really be a cool song. And it made me think of, like, what I think it could be is, when I hear that, I'm thinking, oh, it should be something like Lana Del Rey's Video Games. I don't know if you know that song, Lana Del Rey, um, and the song's called Video Games. So that's what that song makes me think of, where I think, okay, this is what I'm hearing in my head. Um, Big thing here. Hold on, let me make this a little bit bigger. That's what she said too, so I can read it better. The stories in the melody is my first advice to you. And I'm gonna sing for you the first two verses and your chorus, and I'm gonna show you a little bit of what I mean by that. So I'm gonna sing it. It's pretty close. I'm gonna sing it pretty close to what you were singing, but there's just a couple of details that I think are gonna tell the story a little bit better. Because right now you just have two instruments, piano and vocals. Your piano isn't doing much, so your vocals need to carry the entire story, the entire lyrical storytelling of your song, which is a very, very, very difficult challenge. But I'm going to show you, give you a little tip. I'm not the greatest singer, and I'm not a singer, but I want to show you the melody. It's all about the melody and the rhythm here, not so much about like it being sung well or the proper vocal technique. And I'm sure there's more ways to build the melody more. So I think it was, when the story's left untold, when there is no hand to hold, when life comes to keep you tied, just cling on to wings of hope, and believe your every note, that your story shall be solved. 'Cause there will be pain, and there will be fire, but you'll fight for your way. Gaga, 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 botuka. Lies and millions of trials, but you fight it again. And I'm doing the drums here with my hands, because that's how I usually write stuff like that, just so I can imagine where the hits are placed and what everyone is doing in the band. And hopefully that didn't just seem like a madman, doing crazy things with his hands. But hopefully that made a little bit of sense to you, and hopefully you can understand a little bit what it is that I'm hearing in my head as I sing your song. But point here is, did you hear the kind of notes that I sang a little bit different, that kind of give it a little bit more interest? Understand what I mean? And by adding, I added just a little bit of twang in the chorus. Wow, because there will be pain, instead of because there will be pain. It just gives a little bit more push forward. It just makes it a little bit, makes it stand out just a little bit more. And also, what I think you hopefully heard in your head as I was singing this is, oh yeah, this is a chorus. Like, this is different from what we just heard before that. So that was tip number one. My other tip is, go on Google right now and type in mic stand. That's this thing, and it's really cool. You can put it next to your piano and put the mic in it, so then you don't have to hold it, and you have your other hand free, so you can use your other hand as well when you're playing, which is my shitty way of telling you. You can use your left hand as well for piano playing. I'm sorry if I'm being a dick here, but right now it's basically quarter notes in the right hand and sometimes like a bass note in the left hand. Do the full octave thing, especially in your chorus. Add the full octave, go big in the chorus. That's a very standard thing that like every pianist will do. If they start off with just the right hand quarter notes, then in the chorus they're going to add the big octave, right? On the left hand, which is it the right way around? So the left hand would be this one, I think, right now, from your perspective. Okay, yeah, so your piano part needs a little bit of work, not just a little bit, a lot of work. It's very, very simple at the moment. So I suggest you find a pianist, but not one that's like super quick and an amazing pianist. You just need one who understands pop songs. And oftentimes, quarter notes is enough, but the way those quarter notes are played can also be very, very different from one pianist to another. And that lies in the dynamics and how it is played. Little embellishments here and there are okay. Sometimes maybe a resolution from 4 to 3, something like that. I think that's really going to improve your song a whole lot. So find yourself a good pianist. I think it's really going to improve your song. a lot. Next thing is work on your voice. And that, no, I mean, I wrote down work your voice. That's what I mean. Use your voice to your advantage. Use it for lyrical storytelling. Use it to portray power. And this is something I hear a lot of you people doing, is that your sound in your songs is always the same. I hear the same sound in the verse as I hear in the chorus. I hear the same sound in the bridge. It's always that same sound. There's very, very few of you who actually change things up and use a different sound in the verse than in the chorus. And this is something I love doing, and it's in the book, in the chapter on parts, because I think it's so important to understand that your vocals are not just there to do but there's so many other notes, so many other things that you can do with your vocals. Falsetto being one of them. Shouting in metal music is another one, and grunting and all those other crazy things that you can do in metal music. Twang is another. Adding effects to your voice is another. By that I mean reverb and stuff like that. There's so much you can do with your voice, and right now, unfortunately, your song, and I'm not just talking to you, but to everyone out there, almost all of the songs that I get every week have that problem. It's always the same. The voice stays the same from start to finish. There's nothing happening, unfortunately. So one big thing I think for you would be, in your chorus, make sure you have power. Sing your chorus with a little bit more power, and that comes down to diaphragmatic breathing. And so maybe you should get a vocal coach, which is I think every singer should do. I don't know if you already take vocal lessons, but I think your chorus could definitely use a little bit more push, and I think a vocal coach could really help you with that. Then I had the feeling that your last verse kind of takes away from the experience. It kind of seems like a slept-on happy ending, if you know what I mean. Like it resolves what you started with, which is not a bad thing in general. I like setting up a conflict in the beginning of a song and then resolving it at the end, but then resolve it in a more interesting way, not so much in a Hollywood happy ending, which is just like, oh, and everything's fine now. I kind of felt like that took away from the experience of listening to your song, unfortunately. Then there was one verse, which was the "Left Me Behind" verse, which had the had the word "left" in it a lot, which I thought didn't work rhythmically. The other verses worked much better. And I also thought that your first chorus was stronger rhythmically. Your second one is a little bit, there's a lot of notes in there, and it's, compared to the first one, it's convoluted. That being said, I said a lot of negative things here. I really like your song. As I said, I think there's a lot of potential here. This could be a really, really cool song. Moving on to, is it the last song? It is the last song, which is MartiMedia's Xmas or Christmas in Our Kitchen. Dude, this is awesome. I love this song. This is so much fun. And I see you took my advice on chorus writing from last week, which makes me feel really good. And it's much better. This chorus works much better, and it's the best chorus that I've heard from you so far. So I'm looking forward to your new choruses next week and the weeks after that. And it's funky. I love that. I haven't heard many funky songs yet, but it's a really groovy drum sound. I really love your song. It's really, really fun. I have 3 pieces of advice for you. Piece of advice number 1 is about arrangement. And this is also something I talk about in the book. And again, this comes down to lyrical storytelling. I'm sorry that I keep going on about lyrical storytelling, but it is just the one thing that most of you are still having problems with or not paying attention to. Everyone is paying attention to hooks and production and lyrics, but one of the most important things that you hear in almost every pop song out there, lyrical storytelling, people don't pay enough attention to, which is why I'm talking so much about it here. It's not just to promote my book. Sorry about that. But anyways, arrangement. One of the biggest things as an arranger that I think about is my registers. So this is something I also talk about in the book. It's there's 3 basic registers that I like to think in, and over the time I've developed that to 5 different registers. But for the sake of simplicity in this course, I will just talk about 3, and that's low, middle, high. Low instruments, bass, bass drum, middle instruments, guitar, piano, and high instruments, shakers, high strings, high guitar solos, stuff like that. And basically what it comes down to is you want to work with those 3 registers throughout your entire song. So you don't want just all 3 registers present during your entire song, because your song is going to sound flat and boring. So For example, in your verses, you could have just one register, and in your chorus, you could have two. In your second verse, you could have two registers, and in your second chorus, you could have three registers. So that way, you're also building your song. And in your song, your biggest problem is your registers, and especially in your chorus. And again, keep talking about the choruses because that's where the money is. The music in your chorus is still only in a low and middle register. So your vocals are the middle register, and you have a bass and a drum set, which is low and middle register. And there's a hi-hat, but it's really soft in the mix, so it doesn't really add anything to it. So my tip to you is add some high instruments, which means, and your song totally needs that, funky wah-wah guitar. Dude, that would totally freaking kill your song. That would be awesome. That would kill it. A sleigh bell, which you have in the beginning a couple of times, but why not add that sleigh bell throughout the entire song? It's just going to make it more Christmassy. So I personally would love a sleigh bell. And some high strings, and I mean just full chords, not something that's too rhythmic, because the bass and the drums provide all the rhythm that you need, so don't add anything more rhythmic to it, just long high strings that add a little bit of that high register that you need. One more thing about arrangement is at 2:24 you have basically a musicless chorus where it's just groove and the vocals. I really like, in those cases, whenever I do something like that, I always add hand claps, because it's the part where you want everyone to sing along, so also make them clap along. And so add hand claps on, I think, 2 and 4, or maybe just 3, I'm not sure. But if you want everyone to sing, also add hand claps. That's just, I don't know, I always do that. I think it would make that part just a little bit better, and make it stand out, and make it clear to the listener that this is not just a chorus that is very low energy and is completely misplaced, but this is actually the chorus that they're supposed to sing along to. So it's kind of a cliche, but I think it's important to help people understand that this is not just a very sparse arrangement of your chorus, and everyone's like, well, we're so late in the song, why does he add a chorus that is so sparse? You know what I mean? Anyways, two more tips. First of them being a Christmas song tip. This is not so much for you, but in general for everyone who's trying to write a Christmas song this year, and since it's almost, like, it's not long until Christmas, I thought I'd give a couple of tips on how to write a Christmas song. First of all is sleigh bells. In your song, I would add a sleigh bell on 2 and 4 throughout your entire song. And there's, like, maybe take it out in some parts, maybe that clap part that I just talked about, you can take it out. But for most of your song, just add sleigh bells on 2 and 4. I think it's going to make it sound more Christmassy, which is what you want, right? Especially in your intro. Your intro it's kind of hard to follow your intro because it's rhythmically a little bit unclear to me. So having a sleigh bell on 2 and 4, or maybe even 1 and 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm not sure, would probably help to understand what your intro is rhythmically a little bit better. Because right now I'm just like, where's the 1, or like I can't really place it, which is never a good thing. You always want your audience to know where the downbeat is, the 1. One more tip on sleigh bells for everyone, not just for you. Sleigh bells, because I made this mistake myself, sleigh bells work like, don't really work like a shaker. Because I was under the impression that it worked like a shaker, that you could do like shh, 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 stuff like that, you know, like longer notes, or like shh. I thought you could do that. It's very untypical. You know, if you play sleigh bells, people don't really do that. It's really just 2 and 4. It's more like a cymbal, you know. There's not really like the chicka chicka chick stuff like that. It's not done on sleigh bells. It's really just shing 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 shing. All right, so that's just a little tip on if you ever going to write for sleigh bells. I think it's good to know. And my last tip, and again it comes down to this, and I talked about this in the blog last week, is simplify. This week, your song is too complicated, especially in your second chorus. Actually, that is the one issue that I have with it, apart from your intro. Your second chorus, onwards. It keeps going, apparently. I forgot about that. But definitely in your chorus, with the strings that you're adding to it, they're playing something really rhythmical, and I talked about that a little bit earlier already. But they're playing something really rhythmical, and the drums and the bass are already so groovy, and then the strings sort of destroy that groove, I think. Um, Especially, and the biggest problem here is, I think, is that their timing is so messy. Because the samples that you're using have a very slow attack. And in case you don't know what attack means, something with a short attack would be ga, ga, ga. That has a fast attack. Oh shit, my battery's almost running out. And something with a slow attack would be something like, until we get to that note, there's like a certain time. It takes a certain time before we hit the loudest part of that note. So your samples aren't really made for very groovy writing, which is why either you should either find other samples that have more attack, and I'm suggesting staccato strings. What I sometimes do to create legato strings with a lot of attack is I will layer legato strings with staccato strings so that the first note is accentuated by a staccato note, and I blend them in such a way that it sounds like they played ga, which is called a hammer stroke, in case you want to know, on the strings. If you ever want to notate that, it's called a hammer stroke, or well, it's martelle. That's basically what you would write in a score, martelle. Yes, and that's it. That was your one option, right? And the other option is to just play long chords, full bar, just that sort of thing. Anyways, that's song number 5. I'm gonna give the rest of you, and there's more people who submitted songs, and I can't do all of them because this is already getting really long. Where are we time-wise? Oh, it's already 41 minutes long. So we're already way over the time because I wanted to be these to be about around 35 minutes. Anyways, I can't do all 5 songs, but again, I will try to write you guys personally in the comments and give you quick feedback on your songs as well, for those of you who submitted their songs but who didn't get reviewed. And I didn't do that for the ones last week, and I'm very sorry about that. I added one of your songs this week, but I didn't have the time last week. It was just a crazy week. As I said, I'm working for 3 artists at the moment, and I'm working on a new program for holistic songwriting, and it's taken up a lot of time. Plus, Christmas is approaching. Blah, blah, blah. Apologies. Anyways, I'm very busy and I couldn't do it, but I'll try to do it as soon as I can, I promise. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you next week. Keep gefährlich. We don't think that's out. Cheers.